You know when you're scrolling through the news and it all just feels like this chaotic jumble of totally disconnected events? Well, what if it's not? Today, we're going to take the headlines from just a single 24-hour period and connect the dots to see what story they're really telling us about the world we're in right now. So that's the big question, right? If we look at today's major events, not as just random things happening, but as, pieces of a giant puzzle, what picture starts to take shape? Let's see if we can piece it together.
All right, let's start on the global stage because today, some major powers are really drawing lines in the sand, and you can feel the tension everywhere.
Our day kicks off in Beijing with a huge military parade. But honestly, this is about way more than just showing off new hardware. It's all about the guest list. You've got China's leader Xi Jinping, and right there with him, Russia's Vladimir Putin and North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Look, in diplomacy, who you stand next to says everything. And this picture, it's sending a message loud and clear. An anti-Western axis isn't just an idea anymore. It's putting on a show for the whole world to see.
And believe me, this was not just for show. It was a full-blown tech showcase. We're talking new naval gear that's clearly designed to challenge traditional sea power. Everything from advanced missiles to directed energy weapons, and even swarms of unmanned drones. Every single piece of equipment out there is a statement, a way of saying, our strength goes far beyond our borders now. And you know what's wild? The world responded in real time. On the very same day as that parade in China, France's President Macron announced that US-backed security guarantees for Ukraine are almost a done deal. It's like this perfect split-screen moment, isn't it? You've got one bloc showing off its unity in the East, while the Western alliance is doubling down on its own commitments. The lines of a new global standoff are getting clearer by the minute. And while these huge global powers are making their moves, the consequences, well, they hit hardest in places where conflict has been simmering for years. Today, that focus is squarely on the Middle East, with Israeli forces pushing their ground operations deeper into Gaza City. This is a major escalation, and it has immediate, devastating effects for people on the ground. And if you want to understand the scale of what's happening, you just need to look at this one number, 40%. That's roughly how much of the city is now under Israeli military control. It's a statistic that stands for a huge shift in territory, for mass displacement, and for a human cost that just keeps rising. So we've seen the big picture, the geopolitics, but these events have absolutely devastating human consequences. But tragedy also hits in moments that are supposed to be peaceful, and that's when you see the deep flaws in the systems we count on every single day. Let's go to Lisbon, Portugal. A day of sightseeing there turned into an absolute nightmare. One of the city's famous historic funiculars, one of those cable cars that climbs the super steep hills, it derailed and just slammed right into a building at the bottom of the track. The human cost was just staggering. 16 people lost their lives, and this wasn't only a local Portuguese tragedy. The victims were from all over the world. South Korea, Switzerland. It's just a heartbreaking reminder of how connected we all are, even in a moment of loss like this. And what comes right after that initial shock and grief? It's this powerful gut reaction, a demand for answers, a demand for accountability. You hear people asking, how could a system built for public safety fail this badly? That demand for answers, it can be an incredibly powerful force for change. Over in Texas, we see a different story, but one that also started with an unimaginable tragedy, the Camp Mystic flood, where a number of children tragically lost their lives. But that heartbreak, it turned into a catalyst. The grieving families took all that pain and channeled it into this relentless fight for new safety rules. And today, the bill they fought for, the Heavens 27 Camp Safety Act, is now sitting on the governor's desk waiting to be signed. It's an incredible journey from devastating personal loss to real systemic change. So this theme of accountability, of people demanding answers from those in charge, it goes way beyond just individual tragedies. Today's headlines are also full of stories about major institutions being forced to answer for what they've done, both past and present. Over in Washington, D.C., the nation's top health official, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., was really on the hot seat. He was facing an intense grilling from a Senate committee about his leadership during a really turbulent time. Now, this wasn't just, political theater. This was a fundamental exercise in institutional accountability. Lawmakers were demanding answers about everything, from the firing of top officials at the CDC to some really controversial decisions on vaccine policies made during the previous administration. They were basically asking, who is responsible for the actions of our public health institutions? And that search for accountability, it often reaches way back into the past. In Scotland, the famous football club Celtic FC is finding that out firsthand, as a whole new wave of legal claims has just been filed over historical abuse at its youth club. And this data shows that this story is far, far from over. I mean, look at this. While a lot of the original cases were settled, 9 more people have now come forward. It's such a clear sign that for the victims, the fight to hold an institution accountable, well, that fight has no expiration date.
So after all that, what's the thread that ties this one day of news together? It's a story about power, how it's used on the world stage, how its failures lead to immense personal pain, and how people, whether they're citizens, grieving parents, or lawmakers, are pushing back, demanding answers and accountability from the powerful institutions that shape all of our lives.
And that really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? When we see these same patterns of power, of pain, of people demanding answers, playing out day after day, are we just watching the news? Or are we actually seeing the blueprint of our future being drawn in real time? Thanks for joining us.